To save money, I rented a haunted house off campus to study for my exams. Chewing on my pen, stuck on a problem, a voice sighed, exasperated. The answer's A for this one. After I forced myself to finish the whole test paper, that same voice commented coldly, "Just give up. You don't have the talent." I whimpered, clinging to an imaginary lifeline. "Genius, I'm a total newbie. Please help me." Senior year, prepping for grad school exams, my roommates were too loud at night, and I was seriously sleep deprived. To save a buck, I rented a haunted house off campus to study. At first, I even bought some talismans for show, to ward off evil spirits, until one late night, I was nodding off over my calculus homework. Someone suddenly said softly, "The answer's A for this one." The voice sounded utterly exasperated. I slowly opened my eyes, wide awake. No one was around, and the voice didn't speak again. I finished the entire test paper with trembling hands. But this time, he seemed genuinely speechless, his voice cold when he spoke again. "You only got 3 multiple-choice questions right, forgot the constant of integration, and just writing down the solution for the long-form problems won't get you any points. Just give up. You don't have the talent." Every word was like a knife. I was crushed. Still skeptical, I checked my answers and finally accepted my fate. I mustered my courage and shouted into the air, "Genius, I'm a total mess. Please help me out." The air was silent for a moment, then the voice said coolly, "Yeah right. Flunk flunk hee. Forget it. A student like you? I'm afraid I'll have a heart attack from the frustration later on." I whimpered, tears streaming down my face as I stared into empty space. But in the end, the genius was stuck with me. According to him, it was because he was too bored. He'd been trapped in this house for a long time. Since it was haunted, no one dared to live here. He was so bored he'd almost counted every scratch on the floor tiles. Until I, the fearless one, showed up. A 2-bedroom, 1 living room apartment, $200 a month, 1 month's security deposit, and 3 months rent up front. Besides being haunted, it had no other flaws. Aside from studying, I also had to work part-time at a nearby coffee shop to earn living expenses. When I came back from my shift one day and sat down to do calculus, the genius, who had been silent all day, looked at my paper and was so annoyed he actually laughed. "Can't you apply what you learn? Did you review yesterday's mistakes for nothing? Did your brain come free with a phone plan? What are you crying for? You invaded my territory, can't I even get a little angry?" I choked back my sobs and wiped my tears. No, it wasn't that. I just thought he was really going to give up on me. Sniffle. His words were harsh, but it was strangely reassuring. For a whole week, under the genius's relentless drilling, I felt like I was dying every day, but my progress was incredibly fast. I'd always been bad at certain subjects, and anything related to math was a complete disaster for me. After his outburst, the genius finally accepted the fact that I was a math dunce. He took a deep breath and started teaching me from the very basics of differentiation. His explanations were concise, clear, and much better than my school professors who just read off PowerPoint slides. Though he seemed short-tempered, he was actually very patient when explaining problems. But this tutoring wasn't just an act of kindness on his part. Ace said calmly, "I've heard that if a person has an unfulfilled wish in life, their soul will wander the earth day after day until it fades away. I teach you math, you help me fulfill my wish, so I can successfully leave this place." My eyes lit up, and I nodded eagerly. After a long pause, he didn't say anything more. I couldn't hold back anymore and started rambling. "Ace, so what's your name? Where did you live? Do you have any family still alive? And what's your wish?" I needed to confirm his identity before I could help him. The air grew still. He just scoffed. "I don't remember. That was a problem. A murder had happened in the house. The landlord must know the details." I texted the landlord, but she replied with a voice message. "Ugh, didn't you say you didn't mind it being a haunted house? I'll knock another 50 off the rent, okay? I'm telling you, this is the lowest price, honey. Don't try to bargain anymore, alright?" No matter how much I pestered her, she wouldn't reveal a single detail about the murder. Maybe she was afraid that if I knew what happened, I'd really pack up and leave overnight. So, I had to pin my hopes on the internet. The police wouldn't release case information, and online searches only revealed that someone had fallen from the building a few months ago. But any information about the victim's identity was vague. I was clueless, so I had to ask Ace. Ace, do you have any other memories from when you were alive? Like places, famous buildings, anything? He thought carefully, then said hesitantly, cherry blossoms? Cherry blossoms falling in spring. One landed in my hand, carried by the wind. I don't remember much else, but I think I studied physics. I vaguely recall participating in a competition. I froze for a moment. There weren't many universities in the country known for cherry blossoms, but I happened to know one. My first choice for this exam, Jiangqing University. I decided to start by looking at competition participant lists. Jiangqing University had hosted many physics competitions. I wasn't sure which one it was, but with Ace's abilities, his name should be on the list of winners. I found all the physics department award lists from the last 3 years on their official website, and planned to read the names out loud to Ace. Maybe he'd react to his own name. Adam Dong, Brian Fong. Okay, this year's national award for the physics experiment competition goes to Alex. Alex. When I saw that name, I faltered for a second, pausing long enough for Ace to notice something was wrong. He looked at the computer screen and slowly read the name, asking curiously, Alex. You know him? Perhaps driven by curiosity, or maybe because he'd been cooped up in the house for too long, Ace asked nosily. Someone you know, or someone you like? You're usually so out of it you can laugh while crying when I scold you. This reaction is definitely rare. I suppressed my panic, quickly closed the laptop screen, rubbed my eyes, and said with a forced laugh to Ace, I'm tired, let's continue tomorrow. I'm warning you, don't you dare come into my room. A lone ghost and a single girl, don't you try to take advantage of me. I slammed the door shut, so I didn't hear the last thing he said. Sleepless all night, I couldn't take it anymore and called the landlord in the dead of night. I didn't care that she chewed me out for a full 5 minutes, I just stubbornly asked her, can you please tell me that person's name? Or can you at least tell me his last name? Any last name is fine, as long as it's not Sue. The landlord, probably tired of my pestering, finally told me the tenant's last name was Meng. She also warned me that if I ever called her in the middle of the night again, I could get the hell out of this house. After hanging up, her yelling still echoed in my ears, but I could finally sleep soundly. The panic in my heart gradually subsided. Right, how could Ace be Alex? How could he have inexplicably ended up in such a remote, small town? I knew it was a bit unfair to the nameless ghost who was kindly teaching me math. But at that moment, I had only one thought. Thank God. It wasn't him. Alex was my high school desk mate. They say you shouldn't meet someone too amazing when you're young, and it's really true. Alex was a true prodigy. His parents were both highly educated, and he always aced every exam, leaving the runner-up far behind. He even got early admission to the university through academic competitions. Yet such a brilliant person wasn't a bookworm. Basketball, violin, Go, calligraphy, he excelled at everything. Everyone thought he was cold, arrogant, and hard to get along with. But I never felt that way. He would spend an hour every day tutoring me in math, patiently answering every question I had, secretly bringing me tasty snacks, and tolerating my cluelessness and awkwardness. Once, someone snatched my math paper and taunted me. You can't even do such simple problems, Jenna? Maybe you should get your IQ checked. I stood on my tiptoes but couldn't reach the paper held high above me. I dug my nails into my palms, trying hard not to cry. Laughter erupted around me. Alex appeared right at that humiliating moment. His expression was cool as he easily snatched the paper back from the guy, carefully smoothing out the wrinkles. He paused noticeably when he saw me struggling to hold back tears. His lips pressed into a thin line, his knuckles cracking. He stuffed the paper into my arms. Before throwing a punch, Alex asked him casually, "Is a score just 1 point above passing really something to be proud of? Then again, your confidence seems to be bought in bulk, and your head's probably just there to make you look taller." I was woken up by Ace. After a restless night, I'd only slept for 3 or 4 hours. When I woke up, the clock was already nearing 8. Ace's voice whispered in my ear, "Less than 50 days until the grad school exams, and at your age, how can you possibly be sleeping?" It scared me so much I leaped out of bed. I hadn't heard Ace knock, nor did I hear him remind me last night that I had an 8 a.m. class today. This morning he first knocked for 5 minutes. Seeing I wasn't waking up and the 8 a.m. class time was fast approaching, he simply phased through the door to wake me. I rushed into the bathroom to brush my teeth and wash my face, watching as a book or two, a water cup, and a scarf occasionally floated by in the air. Winter had already arrived. He had already packed my books and bag. I mumbled, my mouth full of bread as I put on my shoes. Words can't express my gratitude, master. I'll bring you back something delicious tonight. Ace couldn't eat human food, but he liked watching me eat, vicariously satisfying his hunger. Making empty promises, right? Who couldn't do that? It would all end up in my stomach anyway. He snorted. I guessed he was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, watching me scramble with amusement, because his voice was slow and leisurely. Since you admit I'm your master, they say a teacher for a day is like a father for life. I looked up, puzzled. He said with a half smile, "Good girl, call me daddy and let me hear it." There was no way I was going to acknowledge this nameless ghost occupying my house as my father. So I made a face at him, turned and ran. That night, right in front of Ace, I contentedly ate fried chicken, crayfish, and barbecue. I even described in detail how delicious the food was to Ace. The consequence of showing off to a ghost was that I got a whole serving of overturned crayfish dumped on me, leaving me a complete mess. Although Ace was trying hard not to laugh and repeatedly assured me he hadn't done it. But I was still so mad. The result of my muddled brain was forgetting to grab clothes before my shower. I hesitated between putting my dirty clothes back on and washing them again, or calling Ace to help me get clothes. Losing face or losing it to a ghost, that was a question worth pondering. Just as I gritted my teeth and reached my wicked claws towards that pile of battle-damaged pajamas, a soft voice came. "Yo, what's wrong? Finally remembered what you forgot?" My breath caught for a moment. I couldn't stop looking around. So flustered I almost slipped on the wet floor and fell. I started stammering. Didn't you promise you wouldn't come in?" Ace hinged, but a knock landed on the frosted glass door. I could vaguely see my pajamas floating outside. Ace knocked again, patiently and lazily. Knock, knock, knock. It felt like he was knocking on my heart. He asked slowly, "Aren't you going to take them?" After I guiltily cracked open the door a slit and quickly snatched the clothes in, I suddenly froze on the spot, so embarrassed I wanted to bang my head against the wall. I could have just waited for him to leave before taking them. I covered my eyes, unable to stop my regret. The fingertips brushed by the air seemed to still be faintly burning, like he'd casually dropped a spark. That night, uncharacteristically, I didn't open anything related to math. Ace tutored beside my desk, but didn't say anything more. After a short while, a cooling patch inexplicably appeared on my desk. Looking in the mirror, the flush had spread from my earlobes to my collarbone. I was so embarrassed white smoke was practically coming out of my head. I decisively flipped the mirror face down. My face instantly felt hotter. I retorted stubbornly. That was from the steam in the bathroom. Someone seemed to chuckle softly. He didn't say anything else, but a few more cooling patches flew over. I numbly watched the cooling patches land in my palm, twitched my lips, and said with a fake smile, "Thanks, you're so thoughtful." Someone picked up a pen, waved it in the air, and said haughtily, "You're welcome." I expressionlessly raised my fist at the air, seriously considering the possibility of punching a ghost. I thought the chaotic day was about to end like that. Until in the middle of the night, I was woken up by Ace again. This time, I was genuinely a little angry. What about the gentleman's agreement not to enter my room? Before I could speak, Ace covered my lips. The bedside lamp I pressed didn't turn on. It was pitch black all around, the power must be out. His voice was light and quick. He whispered, "Shoo, someone's picking the lock." The noise outside the door went on for a while, then fell silent. When I moved in, I had specifically changed the lock. Ace said he couldn't pass through to the outside, so he couldn't see the person's face. It was dark all around, the silence chilling. The main door was barricaded with heavy objects. The wait for the police to arrive felt agonizingly long. As if sensing my silence and anxiety, Ace suddenly spoke. "Let's chat." I sat huddled in a corner of the bedroom, one ear listening for noises outside, and asked, "Chat about what?" Math. I looked up with a complicated expression. Who had the mind for problems now? Ace chuckled softly, as if he already knew I'd react this way. He paused for a moment, his voice tinged with an unreadable emotion, and said, "Then let's talk about Alex." I didn't say anything. After a long time, I slowly began. "Actually, there's not much to talk about. Just a regular high school deskmate. He looked out for me, I had a crush on him, so my reaction to seeing his name was a bit extreme. That's all. Someone like Alex, no one could dislike him. I would probably never forget the cloying sweetness of orange soda that summer. Never forget that someone had willingly shielded me from the sun for half a class. Never forget him turning to look at me against the crimson sunset, the evening wind ruffling his dark hair. That rainy night I was deliberately locked in the school. He opened the door from the outside in the pitch darkness. He was clearly out of breath, clearly soaked to the bone. Yet he didn't mention at all how long he'd been looking for me. He just let out a breath, easily stepped over the threshold, held out his hand to me, and said in a lazy tone, "Jenna, are you coming with me?" So the moonlight could shine on me too. I thought Ace wouldn't ask any more, as anyone could see the evasiveness in my words. But he persisted. "What about Alex then? Couldn't he tell you liked him?" This time I was silent for a very long time, my voice a bit hoarse. He gave me a fountain pen. That year of the college entrance exams, Alex had early admission. The day before the exams, he gave me a fountain pen. Ace sneered he wanted to confess? He commented bluntly. "Ha, cliché, so old-fashioned." I shook my head, hugging my cold knees, my eyes slowly lowering. "I don't know. I didn't go meet him. I broke my promise. I lied to him. My senior year of high school was the darkest period of my life. My parents died in a car accident. The other driver was drunk, a hit and run, and couldn't be found for a long time. I was stuck in a difficult situation for so long that even the initial investigating officer subtly advised me to give up. They said, 'You're just a young girl, and it's your senior year. Taking your family's savings and focusing on your studies is the right thing to do. Your parents would be comforted in heaven.' But I didn't want to. I was an only child. My parents loved me dearly and never let me suffer any injustice just because I was a girl. When I was little, I loved listening to their stories. They said I was a child they prayed to Bodhisattva for, so they never let me near temples, fearing I might be taken back by Bodhisattva one day. Back then, my classmates liked to make fun of names. I tearfully asked my parents why they named me Jenna-chun. My classmates all said it sounded like a boy's name. But they patted my head and patiently explained, "Life is long, and mom and dad can't always be by your side. But we hope that you encounter kind people and good words throughout your life." Someone hid their love in a name. So I simply couldn't accept that a senseless disaster had completely taken them from me. In an era before surveillance cameras were widespread, finding someone was very, very difficult. I think I must be a stubborn person. So even though I knew some people would falsely claim to have clues to get the reward money, I went to meet them full of hope every time. 2 days before the college entrance exams, that was the first time I truly saw that person. I had seen his photo many times, from highway surveillance videos, from ID system photos, so I recognized him with just one glance. He was the one who falsely claimed to have a clue. He had been on the run for a long time. He could have changed his name and let this old case be completely buried by time. But he failed. Because of my persistence, because of my stubbornness. So that person used an unknown number to falsely claim he had a clue and demanded a meeting. Being a fugitive had made him paranoid. As he cornered me, if Alex hadn't shown up at that exact moment, I probably would have died that day. Alex, his face grim, took me to report the incident. He silently knelt in front of me to apply medicine to my bleeding knee, his jaw tight, as if he was angry. I gently tugged his sleeve. He closed his eyes as if helpless, yet he looked up at me very seriously. "Can you please not put yourself in danger? Don't get hurt, don't make me worry." No one could refuse Alex. Every time we met, I chose locations with nearby surveillance. Perhaps that person had become desperate enough for a murder-suicide, or perhaps he never intended to make it back alive. But the surveillance had already captured his movements. There was indeed no need for me to continue being stubborn. The next day, Alex gave me a fountain pen. Some people teased, some looked on with envy, but it was indeed just an ordinary fountain pen. No note, no confession, no so-called romantic plot. But Alex said, "Jenna, did you know? The nib of a fountain pen can also be very sharp." Later, during those 2 days of the college entrance exams, I couldn't carry a self-defense knife. But that fountain pen was always in my pocket, never leaving me. The afternoon I successfully finished my science paper, I never imagined that even with the tight security around the exam, that person would still dare to commit a crime. That fountain pen was plunged into his left eye. By the time I was tied up, put in a car, and escaped after a life-or-death struggle, I had already missed an entire hour of my exam. Covered in blood, thoroughly soaked by the downpour, I pressed down on my trembling right hand and calmly gave my statement at the police station. My phone and backpack were all gone. The officer in charge of the case told me to move out of my original house. As soon as possible, the suspect's actions were heinous, and he was highly likely to strike again. He then asked me if I was the only one left in my family. When I had to go out, I should have a familiar friend accompany me. They were taking this case very seriously and would catch the culprit as soon as possible. The room was stuffy and silent, the cicadas of midsummer chirping incessantly. At that moment, the only person I thought of was Alex. The Alex who would search the entire school for me in a downpour. The Alex who wouldn't hesitate to shield me from a blade. I had never been so scared, not when I was tied up in the car by that man, nor when I found out I had missed my college entrance exam. But at that moment I thought, what about Alex? Would he die? If he stayed by my side, would he also disappear from my life like my parents did? That day, after leaving the police station, I bought a bus ticket to another city. Anywhere would do. No meeting, no explanation, because I knew Alex would never let me face all this alone. So let me just disappear completely from his world. Ace was silent for a long time. I had thought that as an onlooker, he would sigh about how unfortunate it was, or perhaps think fate was cruel, and I was too heartless. But he didn't. As I sat on the floor, dazed, a blanket fell from the sky and wrapped around me. Someone gently hugged me through the blanket. My fingertips gradually warmed. After a long time, I finally heard Ace's voice. He said softly, "It was his bad luck. So don't be sad." Reporting to the police station again was becoming routine. The power had been out in that whole neighborhood last night, so the surveillance cameras hadn't caught anyone. It couldn't be ruled out that someone had just tried the wrong door. While waiting for the report, someone called out to me. A man who looked like a Taoist priest stopped me, speaking mysteriously. "Young lady, the ghostly aura around you is quite strong." A nearby police officer rolled his eyes and warned, "Mr. Henry, there's a limit to how much you can scam people with your hocus pocus. Haven't you learned your lesson from being warned today? Next time it's detention." Mr. Henry sighed dramatically, clapped a hand over his mouth, and instantly became quiet as a mouse. But he still found ways to talk to me. "Young lady, have strange things been happening at your home recently? Like hearing unexplained noises? Things suddenly disappearing?" I played along and nodded. He stroked his beard and said, quite pleased with himself, "Well, no need to worry too much. Although you've encountered a ghost, it's not a malevolent one. It should disappear on its own soon enough. Here, look at this talisman. For home protection and peace." But I pushed his hand away, my eyes shining as I asked him back, "Is there any way to make the ghost not disappear so quickly?" He pointed his finger at me, sputtering you for a while, unable to form a complete sentence. After a moment, he sighed with a complicated expression. "Life and death are fated. He's trapped there after death, which means his lingering attachment is there. Humans and ghosts walk different paths. You should give up sooner rather than later." I exchanged contact information with Officer Miller, the policewoman in charge of my case. She looked at me, hesitating, then told me again to contact her immediately if anything unusual happened. I bought a new video doorbell and added several more deadbolts. Plus, since I wasn't going out much while studying for exams, I should be able to hold out until the test was over. When I pushed open the door, the room was pitch black. I stared into the dark room and suddenly said, for no reason at all, "Open sesame lights." A few seconds later, the lights came on. Floating in front of me were several practice exam papers. In the distance, milk was being warmed. The warm yellow light dispelled the cold of the wind and snow. Someone had been waiting for me to come back. Ace waved the test papers, a silent, slight smile on his lips. Was it this golden test paper you dropped? Or this silver one? I snatched the papers, my eyes instinctively crinkling into a smile. I said seriously, "Only children make choices. I want them all." Life seemed to return to normal after that. There were no more sounds of a lock being picked, as if that night had truly been just my imagination. Until Officer Miller contacted me again. Officer Miller was the policewoman in charge of my case. She thought I looked familiar that night, so she proactively got my contact information. Later, she went through the case files and finally remembered where she had seen me. In a photograph. She said that when the murder happened in the house I was currently living in, she was one of the personnel at the scene. There was a photo of me on one of the walls in the house, which was why she thought I looked familiar. She suspected that the lock-picking sound I heard that night might not have been an accident. I replied to her message, then calmly closed my phone. In the distance, Ace was urging me to eat. Surprisingly, Ace was an excellent cook. I'd been freeloading mini meals off him. I mumbled, my mouth full as I ate. "Ooh, Ace, you're truly the model husband and father material." Ace accepted my praise with equanimity, but then added haughtily, "Is that so? So you also think I'm much more useful than certain people who live only in memories, right?" I buried my head in my food, not daring to speak. Ace had been acting strangely lately. He'd stop halfway through teaching math to ask me who taught better, him or Alex. When I yawned as he woke me up, he'd suddenly blurt out, "Would Alex be as thoughtful as me, preparing breakfast and waking you up?" Each time, it jolted me awake. Seeing me silently speed up my eating, Ace said casually, "Eat slowly, I'm not going to fight you for it." Or did Alex use to steal your food in the cafeteria? I choked, almost spraying my food out. Ace gently patted my back, his voice muffled, as if he was laughing. After drinking the water he handed me, I wiped away the tears I'd choked out and looked up at him in silent accusation. Being a person is so hard. The consequence of eating too much was insomnia. At 1 in the morning, I stared resentfully at the ceiling, then finally scrambled out of bed, pulled open the door, and asked softly, "Ace, are you asleep?" Ace wasn't asleep. Perhaps afraid the main light would be too harsh, he had lit a small desk lamp. "Can't sleep?" I nodded and said obediently, "I want you to teach me." He'd pretty much covered all the math. Lately, he'd been summarizing my mistakes. He casually flipped through my papers and asked, "What do you want to learn?" I didn't hesitate, physics. This time, Ace was rather surprised. He'd never thought I'd mention physics. He said slowly, "I thought you weren't interested in physics." I blinked. "Because it's a good sedative. I told you, with a student like you, I'm afraid I'll have a heart attack from frustration." But he still started teaching me physics. From universal gravitation to air resistance, from neutrinos to quantum entanglement. Towards the end, I got a bit lost in thought, my mind wandering elsewhere. Ace suddenly asked, "Jenna, what are you thinking about right now?" I came back to myself and hid under the covers, only my eyes peeking out. I was thinking about Alex. The dim night light was like a flickering candle in the darkness. That year, during evening self-study, the power went out. The announcement hadn't been made yet, and everyone was excitedly restless in the dark. The class president distributed candles to each desk for light. The candle sat between Alex and me. When a breeze passed, the candlelight flickered, and I chewed on my pen, stumped by a problem. As I racked my brains, buried in thought, I heard Alex sigh. He said, "Don't bite your pen. Which problem are you stuck on?" I silently pushed my math workbook towards him. This one, and this one. I can't do any of them." Alex was silent for a moment. Everyone in class said he was cold, quiet, and unapproachable. I was afraid he'd get angry, so I secretly peeked at his expression, only to see Alex lower his eyes, his features softened and hazy in the candlelight. His voice was very pleasant. until he paused halfway through explaining a problem and suddenly asked me, "Jenna, what are you thinking about right now?" I hastily lowered my head and blurted out, "I'm thinking about how to force math to love me back." I heard Alex chuckle. The only thing I was grateful for that night was that the school had a power outage, so he couldn't see my burning ears. Perhaps later, I also regretted that the school had a power outage, so he never knew about my sweaty palms from nervousness. He didn't know how dazzling he was, enough to illuminate someone else's entire summer. Ace pulled me out from under the covers. He was exasperated, almost laughing, as he pinched my chin and said, "Don't think about Alex." His voice was somewhat fierce. With my chin pinched, I mumbled, But you're both my teachers, don't be petty." Ace stared at me for a long time, so long that I instinctively fell silent, so long that I started to feel a little uneasy. He finally decided to let me off the hook for now. He tucked the corner of my blanket in tightly, then asked, "So you want to go to Jiangqing University because of him too?" I thought about it carefully and answered, "Partly yes. We agreed to go to Jiangqing University together. Later, because I missed one of my final exams, my score wasn't high enough, so it didn't happen. But Jiangqing University's chemistry program is also one of the best in the country, so it wasn't entirely for Alex. In high school, I had seen the cherry blossom rain experiment, the precipitate formed when cobalt chloride solution meets sodium hydroxide solution looks like a sky full of falling cherry blossoms. I asked Alex, "Have you ever seen real cherry blossoms?" He shook his head, then looked up, bright light reflecting in his dark pupils. He tilted his head and looked at me intently for a moment, then smiled faintly. He said, "Jenna, I know you want to go to the university. I'll go to the university too. This September, do you want to see the cherry blossoms with me?" I stood there, staring at him for a long time, as if I couldn't quite process the meaning of his words. After a while, I finally managed to stammer out, "There are no cherry blossoms in September." Alex turned his head away. He pressed his lips together, annoyed and frustrated. As I gradually drifted off to sleep, I felt someone stroke my hair. I thought I heard Ace whisper, "Sleep now, don't be afraid. I'm here." In the blink of an eye, it was the day before the written exam. The exam center wasn't near the school. I booked a hotel and busily packed my luggage. Ace watched me bustling around. Truthfully, I didn't even know what I was so busy with. I just felt a little reluctant to leave. Before heading out, I called Ace over and told him to stand in front of me and not move. I clasped my hands together, closed my eyes, and made a wish to Ace. "Ace, please grant me success in my exam." Before every exam in high school, I would make a wish to Alex. Without fail, it was effective every time. Except for that one time, the day before the college entrance exams. When I was seriously making a wish to Alex, the boy who had previously snatched my paper and mocked me interrupted. His ears were slightly red as he said to me, "Jenna, I like you. I hope you do well on your exams." An interrupted wish indeed no longer worked. Missing one subject's score meant I could only get into an ordinary second-tier university. No research facilities, no chance for automatic postgraduate admission. I never participated in any meaningless social activities, burying myself in the library, becoming an oddball among them. In the end, I couldn't stand my roommates' all-night antics, moved into this haunted house, and then met Ace. Someone wiped away my tears. Ace tooted and said in a low voice, "What are you crying for?" I opened my eyes, my vision blurry with tears, but I could only see the empty air in front of me. I heard Ace's voice, lazy and relaxed. "Don't worry, Ace has got your back. Jenna, this exam, you'll definitely ace it." The 2 days passed quickly. I did very well. My only weak spot was math, but the math paper, surprisingly, went very smoothly. The sun began to set, and snowflakes started to fall, just like the downpour on the day of my college entrance exams. Someone appeared at the end of the street corner. The man had a terrifying scar over his left eye, wore an old black coat, and his expression was hard to see against the light. He crunched through the snow, walking towards me step by step. I relaxed my grip on my backpack straps, tilted my head, and suddenly asked him, "Did you know? I've been waiting for you for a long time." Perhaps this score should have been settled 4 years ago. The hit-and-run driver from the car accident, The kidnapper who sought revenge on me 4 years ago. He had changed his name and vanished, but he never stopped trying to find me. Now he had found me. And I had found him too. Watching him approach, I suddenly asked, "You were hiding in that neighborhood near the school. You could have waited for a chance to kill me. Why did you commit a murder in that house, staging it as a fall, to attract police attention?" He chuckled sinisterly. "You're asking about that guy, aren't you? I remember him. That stormy day 4 years ago, he was the one who saved you. Otherwise, you would have died at my hands back then. This time too. If he hadn't suddenly appeared, on the night of June 15th, you should have died at my hands." My eyelashes fluttered. June 15th. The anniversary of my parents' death. I couldn't burn paper offerings at school. I had exams all day, and finally, that evening, I left the campus. When Officer Miller and the police arrived, I was standing under a streetlight, covered in blood, the falling snowflakes like stars in the sky. The man lay in the snow, barely breathing. The police handcuffed him. He had no more room to resist. Officer Miller said to me sternly, "You need to go to the hospital to have your injuries checked." I shook my head and smiled at her, holding up the horrifying wound on my arm. I checked. This counts as self-defense. I won't face criminal charges. My current self was a gift from Alex. So I wouldn't destroy myself. She knew everything that had happened to me. That man had hidden in that house, had plastered my photos all over the walls, plotting how to kill me, a plan foiled by Alex's appearance. The moment I encountered that man, I had dialed Officer Miller's number. I had been waiting for this day for a very long time. I had imagined this day countless times. What kind of weapon he would use, whether he would step with his left or right foot first, how he would appear before me. For these 4 years, I had never stopped preparing for a single day. I'd trained in boxing, learned Sanda kickboxing. The only club I joined in my 4 years of university was martial arts. If the instruction wasn't good enough, I'd save up to pay for classes. The hardest times were when I was beaten to the ground, my whole body trembling to the point where even my fingertips ached. Yet I still had to grit my teeth and get up, to work part-time jobs off campus to survive. 4 years ago, I was determined to catch the culprit but was nearly killed in retaliation due to the disparity in strength. I wouldn't allow myself to make such a fatal mistake a second time. Officer Miller looked at me with a complicated expression. She watched my retreating back, unable to speak for a long moment. The wind howled in my ears, my steps quickening. I ran until I was out of breath, until my heart was racing. I ran back to that haunted house, the place everyone considered unlucky. I wanted to see Ace. Now. Immediately. Right away. But when I pushed open the door, it was dark and silent. I tentatively asked, "Ace?" Empty. No one responded. My voice trembled, and something hot fell from my eyes. "Alex, are you still here?" Alex had left me again. No one would speak to me anymore, and no one would leave a light on for me in the dead of night. 3 full years of high school tutoring, the casual arrogance in his speech, his sharp tongue but soft heart. I had made wishes to him for 3 whole years, and every time, Alex would smile and reply, "Don't worry, genius has got your back. Jenna, this exam, you'll definitely ace it." So, how could I not recognize him? I thought I could hide everything by deceiving myself. I thought we would still have a long, long time together. Someone had selflessly come to save me, again and again. I covered my eyes, but the tears wouldn't stop, trickling through my fingers. On this ordinary snowy night, someone was reborn, someone passed on. But the only thing I knew was, Alex, he had once again, completely disappeared from my life. As I walked to the balcony, someone grabbed me from behind. It was Officer Miller. Her expression was worried, then relieved. "You sent a message saying you didn't want to be alone. Thank goodness I came. Why are you crying like this? Can you tell me about it?" I froze. I had never sent her such a message, but I knew who would have. Alex. I pulled my hand away and frantically searched the house, trying to find any trace of Alex's continued existence. Finally, I saw the lit-up computer screen. Having been away for 2 days, it was the only way I had left for Alex to contact me. The chat window was open to the conversation with Officer Miller. "Hello, can you come to my place for a bit?" Can you please not? Can you please not leave her alone? The timestamp was 20 minutes ago. While I was rushing home, I trembled all over, remembering what Ace had once said. I've heard that if a person has an unfulfilled wish in life, their soul will wander the earth day after day until it fades away. I teach you math, you help me fulfill my wish so I can successfully leave this place. So what would his wish be? For me to pass the exam successfully? Or for the culprit to be caught so I would no longer be in danger? I didn't know. The wind lifted a sheet of paper from the desk. The handwriting was unfamiliar yet familiar. I grabbed the paper, nearly breaking down, and the end of the letter read, "The universe is expanding. Fireworks dissipate at speeds far exceeding light. We will eventually be annihilated into eternity in the universe. Loving you is 10,000 springs, vibrant and bright. In other words, don't be afraid, because we will meet again." I vaguely remembered that evening in my senior year of high school, when he pulled me to the sports field to enjoy the evening breeze. It was noisy with people jogging on the field. In the distance, a muffled bang, and a firework bloomed, then vanished into the air. I asked about the speed at which fireworks dissipate, and he tilted his head slightly, saying it was the speed of light. We watched the entire fireworks display in that evening breeze. On the way back to the classroom, I deliberately lagged a step behind him, openly gazing at his side profile. But the young man turned around, the evening wind lifting the hem of his clothes. He curved his eyes, looking back at me in the light. He said, "Jenna, walk forward." Alex's diary. Ace's journal. Jenna always thought their first meeting was at the start of high school. But it wasn't. Alex had seen her when he was very young. Back then, he had to attend all sorts of cram schools and training sessions every day. He was the prodigy in everyone's eyes, the other family's child in his parents' eyes. He had no close friends to play with. Because he was often compared to others, the kids in the neighborhood eventually disliked him. They would laugh and play, while he, always aloof and quiet, would just stand to the side, ignored and isolated, pursing his lips. When he was embarrassingly pushed into a sandpit, his parents' admonishments echoed in his ears. They wanted him to be outstanding. They wanted him to be sophisticated and adept at everything. He just thought, with the time spent maintaining superficial relationships, he could solve a couple more problems. But that was the first time he saw Jenna. She crouched in front of him and handed him a band-aid. He only remembered her palm was very warm. Under the scorching sun, she looked him earnestly in the eyes. "Don't be afraid. We can fight them back together." A long, long time later, Alex started keeping a diary. This was the first page of the diary. Later he moved. A long time passed, perhaps only a few short years, but to him, it felt very long. He saw her again in the alley where stray cats often appeared. To briefly escape his dull and uninteresting life, he would occasionally take a detour to feed the cats in the alley. Until one day, a sign hung beside the simple cat shelter. "Don't feed stray cats treat sticks. Cats will become picky eaters." Alex stared at the cardboard sign for a long time, then turned back with the cat treat sticks he had brought. When he returned, he brought cat food and canned food, only to see someone crouching in front of the cat shelter. The sunset glow illuminated her side profile. The cats, usually wary of people, were squinting in comfort under her touch, quiet and docile. He thought perhaps he knew who the owner of the cardboard sign was. This was the second page of the diary. Not long after, high school began. Looking at his new deskmate, he understood for the first time what fate meant. The rumor in class was that he was cold, aloof, and unapproachable. She hesitated, stealing a few glances at him, then continued to wrestle with the math problems in front of her. But he didn't want that. He didn't want her to be afraid and avoid him too. He didn't want her to look at him with such an unfamiliar gaze. He didn't want them to be just ordinary classmates. He lowered his gaze and said softly, "Draw an auxiliary line from that intersection." A few words, and she had an epiphany. When she looked up again, her eyes were sparkling. She turned her face and suddenly said, "Genius, let's get to know each other. My name is Jenna-chan." He smiled faintly, and he thought to himself, "Yes, I know. A long, long time ago, I wanted to meet you." Later, more and more pages were added to the diary. Someone in class bullied Jenna, locking her in the classroom on a stormy day. He searched for a long time, finally finding her at the school. Water dripped from his hair. He was actually so cold his head was a bit muddled, but he secretly wiped the rainwater from his palm and, amidst the claps of thunder, extended his hand to her. Just like many years ago. "Jenna, are you coming with me?" Later, he found that boy. The boy who snatched her test paper and locked her in the classroom. The boy, exasperated and angry, retorted with a sneer. "What's your relationship with her? What right do you have to interfere in my business with her?" The lean, tall young man tensed his jaw, his gaze cold and sharp as he glanced at him. His relationship with Jenna? It was the kind where, at an age when they didn't understand love, they could play house and be mommy and daddy. It was the kind where he had schemed for a long time to finally get to know her. It was the kind where he liked her and wouldn't allow anyone to bully her. A long time ago, he didn't know what like meant. But now he understood. To like someone is to fall in love with the same person, wholeheartedly, again and again. But he still missed Jenna. Jenna had an accident before the last exam of her college entrance tests. He searched for her for a long time, finally learning her whereabouts by helping a teacher organize files. An ordinary school in the south. Another city 974.7 kilometers from Jiangcheng. It was a very long distance, a train journey of nearly 9 hours. Sometimes he would buy a ticket to her city. His diary began to be filled with train tickets and plane tickets. Sometimes he could see her from afar, sometimes not. Sometimes he would wonder if she was still mad at him. He knew she might be in danger, and he had promised to wait for her downstairs at her home. But that afternoon, it rained heavily. He had just gone downstairs when he ran back home to get an umbrella. He was only 2 minutes late, and she was gone. Many years passed. He unexpectedly encountered the person who had once ruined Jenna's life again. During the struggle, a knife plunged into his chest. As his consciousness gradually faded, he remembered that September when school started, cherry blossoms falling like rain in the wind, one landing in his palm. The sudden warmth made the cherry blossoms bloom a second time, swaying gently in the breeze, petals drifting down. Just like the first time he saw her. Brief and brilliant. He wanted to tell her that, actually, cherry blossoms do bloom in September. But he never had the chance to say it. During his time as ace, he was trapped in that house, his memories blurred, living in a daze. Until that final day, when Jenna went for her exam, he suddenly remembered everything from his life. He remembered how, as ace, he would occasionally make sarcastic remarks about his past self, Alex. Alex was speechless. He thought recovering his memories was a stroke of luck, but it wasn't. He began to gradually fade away. He saw the shared messages on the computer, saw Officer Miller say she was already on her way. He knew his wish had been fulfilled. So he also had to leave. Before leaving, he only did 2 things. First, speaking as Jenna, he asked Officer Miller to look after her that night. Don't leave her alone. Don't let her do anything foolish, please. Second, he left a letter for Jenna. He didn't know if she had recognized him or not, but he thought Jenna was so smart. She must have guessed it was him right away. Many years ago, after that fireworks display ended, he had said to Jenna, who was lagging half a step behind, "Jenna, walk forward." At that time, he was thinking, "Jenna, walk towards me to my side." After so many years, he finally said those words again. But this time he was thinking, "Jenna, walk forward. And then, leave me forgotten in the past." Alex opened his eyes. The morning cicadas chirped incessantly. A piercing ringing filled his ears. He frowned in discomfort but saw the wind rustling the sycamore leaves outside the window, casting dappled light on his desk. His heart ached faintly. His gaze fell on the calendar on his desk. The date showed June 4th, 4 years ago, 3 days before the college entrance exams. He abruptly closed his eyes. When he opened them again, ignoring the pain racking his body, he stumbled through the alley and arrived downstairs from Jenna's apartment. His heart pounded fiercely. He was panting heavily, bent over with his hands on his knees, when he heard someone ask, puzzled, "Alex, what are you doing here?" He looked up and saw her standing on the steps, tightly clutching her school bag strap. His gaze met hers. And this time he wouldn't miss her again. The end.